My oldest friend asked me to help his sister move into her farmhouse, and I figured it for what it looked like. A Saturday of hauling boxes and a cold beer after. I did not figure it for the night that cracked me open after 4 years of being shut. Because that night, with a blue norther screaming down out of the hills and the power gone black and an old house groaning around us like a ship in weather, she stood in the dark at the bottom of the stairs and asked me, so quiet I almost lost it under the wind, "Can you stay tonight?" And I want to tell you I understood what was happening. To her, to me, to the whole locked-up rest of my life. I didn't. Not yet. But I stayed. And staying turned out to be the bravest thing I'd done since I buried my wife. Let me back up, though, or none of it will land right. My name's Cole Mercer. I'm 46 years old, and I restore old houses down in the Texas Hill Country, a little town called Cypress Bend, where the limestone hills roll up soft and gray-green. The live oaks are older than the county, and on a still evening, the cicadas get so loud you can feel them in your teeth. I'm a carpenter. A good one, I'll say it plain, because it's the one thing left I'm sure of. I can bring a 100-year-old farmhouse back from the dead, square up a sagging door, marry new wood to old so you can't find the seam, make a broken thing hold weight again. I just can't seem to do it for myself, and there's a reason. 4 years ago, I lost my wife, Ellen. We were 2 years into fixing up our own place. I was building us a life with my own 2 hands, a room at a time, the way I'd always dreamed, when she got sick, and it went fast and it went ugly, and then she was gone, and I was standing in a half-finished house that was supposed to be our future. And I never picked the tools back up on that house, not once. I sold it half done, moved into a rent place with white walls I never touched, and I poured everything I had into other people's homes. I'll build you a nursery. I'll restore your grandmother's farmhouse till it shines. I just won't build one single thing for myself, because building for yourself means believing you've got a future worth the lumber, and I'd quit believing that in a hospital room. I called it keeping busy. It was really just grief wearing a tool belt. The one person who never bought my I'm fine was Dale. My oldest friend. We go back to the 5th grade, back to catching crawdads in the creek behind his daddy's place. Dale's watched me disappear an inch at a time for 4 years, and been too decent to say so. So when he called me that October and said, "Hey, I need a favor, my little sister June's finally leaving Craig. She bought our great-aunt's old farmhouse out on Ranch Road 12, help me move her Saturday," I said sure, and I didn't think one thing of it. I didn't know Dale was throwing a drowning man a rope and calling it a moving job. That's Dale. He'd never make you feel like the one being rescued. I knew June a little, the way you know a friend's kid's sister, a face at graduations and funerals, a name in Dale's stories. I hadn't laid eyes on her in maybe 15 years. What I remembered was a bright, laughing girl. What pulled up to that farmhouse Saturday morning in a loaded-down truck was a woman who'd had the bright worn most of the way out of her and was standing up straight anyhow, which somehow got to me worse than if she'd been falling apart. 44 years old, Dale's eyes, but tired, and a way of moving through her own new house like she was apologizing to it for taking up the room. She'd spent 22 years, I'd learn, being the quiet engine of a man named Craig's whole life. Ran his office, ran his home, ran his everything, and somewhere in the running clean disappeared, until one morning she looked in a mirror and couldn't have told you a single thing she wanted that wasn't really something he wanted. So she left. Bought her dead aunt's farmhouse with money that was finally, legally, only hers. And it was, she told me later, the first thing she'd owned outright in her whole adult life. 12 acres, a swayback barn, a spring-fed creek, a mean old goat named Waylon that came with the place and answered to no one, and a big stone farmhouse that hadn't had a soul in it in 3 years. Moving day was moving day. Dale and I hauled and cussed and got a couch stuck in the front door at an angle that violated physics, and Waylon the goat ate a lampshade off the porch and looked us dead in the eye while he did it. And June laughed once, a real one, surprised out of her, quick as a bird, and I caught myself thinking, I'd like to be the reason she made that sound again. And then caught myself catching myself, because that woman was Dale's baby sister 2 weeks out of a bad marriage, and I was a widower who lived behind white walls, and there was no version of that arithmetic that ended anywhere but trouble. Late that afternoon, Dale had to head back, his own family, an hour off. And I watched him do a thing that told me who he is. Before he left, he took that big old iron key to the farmhouse, the heavy black kind they don't cut anymore, and he pressed it into June's hand and folded her fingers over it and said, "Gruff, first thing that's ever been just yours, sis. Nobody else's name on it. You hear me?" And June held that key in both hands like it might dissolve, like she didn't quite have the right, and her chin did something. And Dale climbed in his truck fast, the way men do when they're about to feel something in front of company. Then it was just me finishing up, and June, and a farmhouse full of boxes, and the light going long and gold over the hills. And the weather turned. If you've never been in Texas for a blue norther, I can't fully explain it. The sky in the north goes a color like a bruise, and the temperature drops 30 degrees in an hour, and the wind comes down out of nowhere mean and cold and constant, and it finds every gap in an old house and sings through it. I was loading my tools to go when it hit, and the lights flickered once and died. Power's the first thing to go out on Ranch Road 12, and the whole farmhouse went dark and started to groan and creak in the wind, every board of it, 100 years of settling all talking at once. And I watched June go still in the middle of her dark new living room, and I watched something come up in her face that she couldn't hide, and I understood, all at once, the thing she hadn't said all day. Coal. Her voice was very small in all that wind. "I need to tell you something, and it's going to sound crazy." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm 44 years old, and I have never spent a single night alone in my life. Not one. I went from my parents' house straight to Craig's, and there was always somebody. Always. And I hated it. I fought for years to be alone. And now I'm standing in the first house that's ever been mine, and it's pitch dark, and the wind won't stop, and I just realized I don't know how to be by myself. And the front door won't even lock. The key won't turn. The lock's broken. And I'm so ashamed to be asking this." She made herself look at me. "Can you stay tonight on the couch? I don't mean, I just can't be the only heartbeat in this house on the first night. Can you stay?" And there it was, not what a title makes it sound like. Just a brave, terrified woman standing at the edge of a freedom so big it had turned into a cliff, asking another lonely person not to make her face the dark alone the very first time. "I'll stay," I said, "and I'll fix that lock right now, so your key turns, so it's yours to lock and nobody else's to open." And I meant the lock, and I meant a great deal more than the lock, and I think we both heard it. I found an old oil lamp in a box marked kitchen and got it lit, and I got down on the floor at that front door with the wind howling and worked that 100-year-old mortise lock by lamplight, cleaned it, freed the seized bolt, filed the worn ward down, while June held the light for me and watched my hands. And when I was done, I put that heavy iron key in her hand and said, "Try it." And she slid it in and turned it, and the bolt shot home solid with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. And she locked her own door for the first time in her life, and unlocked it, and locked it again, and I watched a woman fall a little bit in love with the sound of a door she controlled. She laughed, wet-eyed. "That's the best thing I've ever heard," she said. "It was a lock. It was never just a lock. We spent that whole northern night talking by that one lamp, her on the couch under a quilt, and me in the chair, the house creaking, and the wind singing, and the rain finally coming hard on the tin roof of the porch. And somewhere in the small hours, when it's just the lamp and the storm and there's no daylight to perform for, we told each other the true things. She told me about the 22 years. Not dramatic, that was the awful part. No black eyes, no big story. Just a slow, patient erasing. A man who found her opinions cute, then tiresome, then didn't ask. Who made every choice until she forgot she'd ever had a taste of her own. The worst part, she said, staring at the lamp, isn't that he was cruel. It's that I let myself vanish so gradually I didn't even feel it happening. I woke up one day and I was just the space where a person used to be. Her voice broke. And now I've got 12 acres and a mean goat and a house that's all mine. And I'm 44 and I have to go find out who I even am. From scratch. In the dark. And I'm terrified. And I told her about Ellen. First time I'd said the whole of it out loud to anybody. The half-built house. The way I'd hammered a future for us. A room at a time and then just stopped, mid-swing, and never started again on anything of my own. I build other people's homes now, I said. and the wind took a little of it. Beautiful ones. I just can't build my own. Because to build your own, you've got to believe you've got a life coming that's worth the lumber. And I buried that belief in a box 4 years ago, and I've been real careful never to dig it back up. She was quiet a while. The rain on the tin roof. Somewhere out in the dark Wayland, the goat hollered once at the storm and went quiet, and the lamp guttered and steadied, and the whole house leaned into the wind and held. Then she said the thing I'll carry the rest of my days. Cole, you've spent 4 years making broken houses hold weight again for everybody but yourself. And I spent 22 years being the reason somebody else's life worked, while my own fell down around me. She looked at me across that little circle of lamplight. Maybe the bravest thing either one of us could do isn't fix another wall. Maybe it's just let somebody stay in the house while it's still broken. If you've ever been so shut down that being seen feels like a light too bright to look at, then you know there is nothing on this earth like a person in a dark house naming the exact shape of the thing you've been hiding, and not being scared of it, and not trying to fix it, just sitting in it with you till the storm passes. We didn't touch that night. I want you to know that. Our hands stayed where they were, and the couch stayed the couch. But something crossed the room between us anyway, in the lamplight, that was realer than any touch I'd had in 4 years. Morning came clear and cold and washed clean, the norther gone through, the hills sharp as cut glass, and I made coffee on her gas stove, and we didn't say much, and everything was different, and we both knew it. I should tell you the good part came slow and complicated after that, because good parts do. June hired me to restore the farmhouse. A real job, months of it, and I told myself that's all it was, a job, right up until I couldn't anymore. I came out on Ranch Road 12 near every day that fall and winter, and I rebuilt that house board by board. And June found herself in it one day at a time. Started painting the rooms colors Craig would have hated. A deep front porch blue, a kitchen the yellow of butter. Started keeping bees, made friends with even the goat. I watched a woman come back to life in slow motion. First week she asked me before she moved a single thing, like she still needed permission from somebody. By Christmas she was arguing paint chips with me and winning, telling me exactly where the bookshelves went, and I could have cried at how good it was to watch her take up room in her own life again. She hung her aunt's pictures. She planted a garden in January that everybody said was too early, and half of it came up anyway, stubborn as she was. And working side by side, the two of us, sawdust hanging in the winter light, and the radio going low, and Waylon hollering at us through the window, something grew between us that I quit being able to call anything but what it was. But I held the line, because she was Dale's sister, and because a haunted man doesn't get to reach for a woman just learning to stand on her own. I held that line hard. Dale broke it for me, and not gently. He figured it out, brothers do. And he came out to the farmhouse one evening and got me alone by my truck, and he was as mad as I'd seen him in 30 years. I asked you to help her move, Cole, not, he scrubbed his face. She just crawled out from under a man who ran her whole life. The last thing on God's earth she needs is to be some project for you to fix, so you can feel useful. Or worse, a rebound for 4 years of grief you've never dealt with. His voice cracked. I love you like a brother. But I won't watch you use my sister to climb out of your hole, and I won't watch her get her heart broke by a man who's still married to a ghost. And here's the thing, every word of it hit exactly where I already lived, because I'd asked myself the same. Was I reaching for June, or just reaching for a way out of the dark? Did a woman finally free deserve to tie herself to a man who couldn't even build his own front porch? So I did the thing 4 years of grief had trained me to do. I backed off. Told June maybe Dale was right. Maybe she needed to find out who she was without a man in the house. Maybe I needed to stay where I was. Told her it was for her sake. Dressed my cowardice up in honor and loyalty and walked away from the one warm thing I'd felt since the hospital. The farmhouse sat half restored. Same as the last one. I'd done it again. Walked off mid-swing on a house that was supposed to hold a future. It was the goat that broke me, if you can believe it. I drove out one last time to get my tools, and there was that mean old goat Waylon standing at the fence, and June nowhere in sight, and the porch I'd been building for her, sitting there half-framed, raw joists open to the sky. And I stood looking at another future I'd left unfinished, because I was too scared to believe I'd get to stand on it. And I heard Ellen's voice in my head, clear as the cicadas. And what she said wasn't stay faithful to me forever. Ellen would have been furious to see me like this. What she said was, Cole, you built me a life with those hands. Go build yourself one. That's the only way you honor a single day we had. The dead don't want us shut in a dark house alone. I'd forgotten. I built my whole trade on that truth and forgot to apply it to my own heart. I went to Dale first, drove straight to him, and I said, you're right that she was controlled by one man too long and doesn't need another one running her life. But you're wrong about me. I'm not fixing her. That woman doesn't need fixing. She's the strongest person I know. And I'm not using her to climb out of grief. She's just the first thing since Ellen that ever made me want to climb out at all. I'm asking for your friendship, Dale, and I'd take your blessing if you had it in you. But either way, I've got to go tell your sister the truth, because I'm done leaving houses half-built. Dale looked at me a long time. Then his eyes went wet, and he grabbed me by the neck, the way he has since we were kids, and said, it took you 4 years and a mean goat to come back to life, you stubborn son of a gun. Course you've got my blessing. I've been trying to get you two in a room since October. Meddling to the last, that one. Then I drove out to Ranch Road 12, and I found June on that half-built porch, and I did the un-Cole thing. I walked off this house because I was scared, I said. Same as I walked off the last one. Because building something means believing you've got a future worth building, and I've been too much of a coward to believe that for 4 years. I climbed up onto the raw joists next to her. But I'm believing it now. In you. And I'd like to finish this porch and this house, and I'd like to build a whole life on it if you'll have a haunted carpenter who's finally ready to quit being haunted. My voice about gave out. That first night you asked me, could I stay till morning? I'm asking you the other way now, June. Can I stay? Not just tonight. Can I stay? She was crying and smiling both, the way the true things always come. And she reached into her pocket and took out that big iron key, the first thing that was ever hers alone, and she pressed it into my hand and folded my fingers over it the exact way Dale had folded hers. And she said, only if you'll take a key of your own. I want it to be ours. I spent 22 years in a house that was his. I'd like to build one that's ours. And I kissed her on that unfinished porch with the cicadas roaring and the hills going gold. And every wall I'd left standing in myself for 4 years came down at once. And this time, I had somebody to help me clear the rubble. That was 2 years ago. The farmhouse is finished now. Finished the way a house is when it's loved. Which is to say it's never quite finished. There's always a next thing, and that's the joy of it. I built the porch. I built a studio off the back, where June keeps her bees and paints the walls whatever color she pleases. I built us a bed frame out of live oak that fell in the norther that started all this, which felt right. Dale comes for Sunday supper and takes full credit for the whole thing, and I let him, because he earned it. He threw a drowning man a rope and called it a moving job. Even Waylon the goat has come around, mostly. And by the front door of our house there hang 2 heavy iron keys on 2 nails, hers and mine, and every single time I lock that door at night behind the 2 of us, I think about the first night, and the broken lock, and a brave woman in the dark, asking a shut-down man to stay. So here's the only thing I've got worth handing across the porch rail to you. If there's a threshold in your life you've been scared to cross alone, some new dark house, some freedom so big it's turned into a cliff, some future you, left half-built because you quit believing you deserve to stand on it. I want you to hear this from a man who lived 4 years behind white walls he wouldn't touch. You don't have to face the first night by yourself. And building something for your own life isn't a betrayal of what you lost. It's the only way to honor it. Fix the lock. Take the key. Let somebody stay in the house while it's still broken. And if this one stayed with you tonight, wherever you are, whatever dark house you're standing in, whatever threshold you've been too scared to cross alone, I'd count it a real kindness if you'd tell me down below about a first night that frightened you, and who you'd ask to stay, or wish you had. I read every one. June reads them out on the porch with her coffee, and she always knows the ones from somebody standing at the bottom of their own dark stairs. Take the key, friend. I'll see you on the next one.